Today, it's time that we remember the dead. Hello and welcome to Rotted Review of the Day, and today we continue on with our Whispering Corridor series from South Korea, this time with the 1999 entry, Memento Mori. Now, before I get into this review, I do want to address the previous video that I made explaining a short delay. There was an aspect of this film that, privilege being involved, I did not feel comfortable addressing without a little bit of clarity and a little bit of meditating on how to go about it. And I believe that I have reached a good point with that, basically refraining from any sort of commentary as far as the situation goes in terms of morality, in terms of should or shouldn't have. And simply, factually, this is what was on the screen, and as an audience member, this is how it made me feel. But I want to really give a shout out and show my appreciation for the folks that I've talked to in my attempt to be sensitive about this, as well as everybody that's reached out to me, especially and including Rotted Soul Catherine Gordon. I know I didn't get back to you on this one, but I appreciate you reaching out to me and offering the ability to have a soundboard on this one. So, moving forward, Memento Mori is the second film in the Whispering Corridor series, and the overarching theme being taking place within an all-girls school. And in this case, what we have is two characters of Min Hyo-shin and Yoo Si-yoon as two lesbian lovers. They, from the outside, look like just simply the best of friends, tied at the hip, as close as can be, and in fact they are actually closer. They are in love with one another, but a series of events happens in which they become fractured. Now, first of all, Min Hyo-shin is a lot more enthusiastic about the relationship as far as public perception and so on goes. She has written a diary that is chock full of all sorts of themes of love and her love of you, and so on, and as well as wanting to go public. She wants to have you in a situation of a grand display of passion in the classroom. But also counter to all of this, Min also has an affair. She says it doesn't mean anything. It's basically an act of pity, but it's with a male professor. So all told, all wrapped up, they are fractured, and Yoo winds up breaking up with Min. So everything starts going wrong when the diary is just found laying around by another student, So Min-ah. And as she started diving into this, terrible tragedies start occurring. And I really don't want to get too much more involved with the plot. Suffice it to say that some supernatural elements do come into play as terrible tragedies in the mortal realm unfold. This movie, this is a little bit of a difficult one for me to wrap my head around, not because of the content that I mentioned earlier, but just in general. I thought that it was a lot more polished and a lot more nuanced than its predecessor of Whispering Corridors, but it was also disorienting, and honestly not in a good way. This movie does what a lot of Asian horror films do, and from what I can tell so far, all of the Whispering Corridors films do, is jump back and forth in time. Not necessarily, having characters jump back and forth in time, but simply having the audience bounce back and forth. And we often get are situations where the way that the plot unfolds is we witness the consequences first. And then through the consequences and the characters surrounding the consequences, dealing with them, and then having the supernatural factors enter into it, like we know that this tragedy occurred, and we know that there's this haunting element around this tragedy, but what we don't know is why. Why is this ghost so angry? Why did this tragedy happen in the first place? And then through a series of flashbacks, we are presented with the story of what actually happened to cause those consequences. And my big complaint about this movie is not that they employed that method. I actually really like that method. I think it lends itself to having a very captivating user watch experience. But my big problem with this is the fact that it does not have any visual tone shifts at all. So it becomes very, very difficult to follow. even something with just like a slight grain or a slight sepia tone, or even just an overlaying single note soundtrack to kind of just let us know that, hey, we have now, from the audience's perspective, moved back in time, and we are now watching is the past. We are now watching a flashback, and we will get back to the present day soon. We're just getting this little snippet now. But without that, it became very, very difficult to follow. It became very disorienting, and like I said earlier, not in a great way. Christopher Nolan doing Inception, this is one of the best examples I can think of where it was done right. By having so many layers of dream states, he wanted to make each one visually unique, because the one thing you don't want is the audience trying to figure out where they are at any given time. By having that element of having, each area have its own color tone, its own warmth to it, all sorts of different unique aspects visually to each and every layer, we are able to follow, at least, timeline-wise and geographically, the characters, because otherwise it's a mind bender as it is. And the last thing that we need to be doing as the audience is trying to figure out where in relationship to other characters that this character is. That is something where, as we're trying to figure that out, we are missing stuff. We are missing dialogue. We are missing plot points. While we are in our own head churning on things, stuff's happening on the screen that we are losing. And that's what I feel like Memento Mori did. By me trying to figure out every time it was doing a flashback, whoa, okay, well, how is this character, alive? How is this character not, hurt or maimed? Every time it was jarring and I had to try to reground myself, it was a situation where I felt like I was losing stuff, and it just kept me hopping from one foot to the other, because it was a method that was employed very often. Whispering Corridors did employ this, but I think it did it a little bit better, and it didn't do it nearly as often as Memento Mori did. So, from an overall user, just audience experience, I enjoyed this movie. I thought it was an interesting mystery. I liked the characters, but for me, overall, it was a lesser watch experience than its predecessor. So I'm going to go and throw up all the scores here. As always, 4 different categories, each one worth up to 25 points for a total possible score of 100 points. And I still enjoyed it, as you might be able to tell from the scores here. I just enjoyed it a little bit less, I think, on every front. And what I was talking about the visual cues and so forth, that really what it comes down to more than anything else is the editing. And that is massive on a technical level. That is something that really easily could have been addressed in post-production, but simply wasn't. And I don't know if it would be easier for somebody that was watching this that was, born and raised in Korea, but me being a Western audience, just trying to watch this and enjoy the characters and enjoy the storyline, and being thrown and rattled by the constant shifting, it did make it a little bit less so. And I think that could have been, like I said, very easily fixed in post-production without taking anything away from the movie at all. Even just the slightest film grain or slightest color tone difference, something along those lines. I'm not asking for, a big transitional, I'm just asking for a little bit of difference so that we know that the transition has been made. And without that, the movie really suffered as an entire watch experience for me. And so with a score of 59 out of 100 points, I would say that this is an okay movie, not that great, and honestly, it's my least favorite so far. However, we're only 2 into a series of 5. So I think that should about do it. That's pretty much all I really wanted to cover with Memento Mori. I really thank you for joining me here today. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. If you like this video, please click like and subscribe. And if you want to support me further, my Patreon tip jar and my merchandise storefront links are below. Remember, next time you want to watch a horror movie, first make sure that it's good and rotted.